ASUU impasse. We've seen the back and forth between the federal government and the ASUU court order letter ordering vice chancellors to reopen the universities and the reactions that have trailed. Yes, we've seen that that order has been withdrawn by the National Universities Commission, but we're going to be talking about that this morning, and we have joining us Dr. Abdulrahman Buhamis, a lecturer from the University of Abuja, who joins us virtually to talk about this. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us this morning on Daybreak. Yeah, thank you. All right, now we have seen several reactions trailing the court order by, asking ASUU to discontinue with this strike. And then following that, yesterday we also saw another letter to the effect that, chancellors, vice chancellors should reopen the universities. What's your take on the recent developments as far as ASUU strike is concerned?
Well, thank you for your question. That the government has gone to court because in a democracy where you have competing interests, whenever there are impasse and we don't have solution to it, instead of resorting to fighting, to quarrel, to verbal attack, saying that we can't give you what we want, and then we can keep our children at home forever. So there must be a sort of ice breaking, and the ice breaking is the court that the government has approached to interpret the law. And then you have a court order. And the court order, by its very nature, though the substance of the case is yet to be heard and determined, but the court order is saying that ASUU should go back to the classroom. And ASUU is saying that they're going to appeal the case. And based on my own understanding about law enforcement in this country, is that appeal does not constitute stay of execution. So once there is a judgment, the parties are bound to comply with such a judgment. So it's yet to be seen. Okay, ASUU has even made its position known that as a body, it is not going back to the classroom until its conditions are met. So that again is another ball game altogether.
Dr. Hamisu, how did we even get to this point where the matter became a court issue? Because the last time we checked, there were negotiations, there were committees set, and there was even a committee that was set up that was headed by the Minister of Education. It has vice chancellors as members. It has DAYBREAK as a member as well. And that committee is yet to submit its report. So why did it get to this point where the government had to go to court? We don't know, how far has that committee gone?
You see, even if the why I said this is the fact that don't forget the fact that most of the things that were talked about were things that have already agreed upon. The only issue or the only snag that brought us to this position was when ASUU said government must pay the members as the 6-month salary that we were on strike. And government is saying that we have a substituting law, and the law states that at the point you are on strike, you are not rendering any service. And if you're not rendering any service, you are not eligible for any payment. And that brought us to where the pronouncement that no work, no pay would be applied. And that was when ASUU decided a total strike a total strike and said the strike is going to be total and is going to be indefinite. So even if the committee had submitted a report, and that report excluded the 6-month pay, I bet you ASUU will not call off the strike. And if government is trying to be proactive by seeing through the veneer to say that, okay, no matter what we're going to do, what these people are going to recommend, because we have a situation here, and the government is saying what ASUU is demanding for, we cannot afford, and ASUU is saying you can afford it, and that is a stalemate. And then the committee that was set up to look into it, the committee of vice chancellors and so on and so forth, was going to be in a serious dilemma, because if they return to government to say government should pay the 6-month salary, government will see them as taking side with ASUU. And if they go to federal government to say don't pay the 6-month salary, ASUU we feel that the committee of vice chancellors that was saddled with that responsibility is siding with government. So their situation is a very precarious situation. So this, for me, is the best way to go. Anytime there is any issue that has to do with labor, go to the court and let the court make a pronouncement, and then the pronouncement should be enforced. Because if we don't go this way, and we're talking about intellectuals, we're talking about people that are training our kids to be disciplined, to be law-abiding, to be hardworking, to honor whatever agreement they've entered into with some other persons, then it behoves on us to start going to the court to test whatever we feel is right for people to learn, for people to be compelled by the law to do what. So if ASUU had gone to court to say, okay, government has failed in its responsibility, I think that will really place government in a very bad light.
But doctor, don't you think that
you don't expect your child to start teaching you what you need to do?
The court route will further prolong the issue?
Of course, but that is the only way out. That is the only way out. Okay, how do we solve this problem? If ASUU refuse to shift ground and federal government refuse to shift ground and nobody has gone to court, where will that take us to? And when will it end? So as for me, however long it is, if we are beginning to resolve our labor disputes through the courts, I think it's better for us than for assuming ASUU approached the courts in the last 6 months. By now, I'm sure that case would have been dealt with. Or federal government approached the courts in the last 6 months, this issue would have been trashed. But we waited for 6 months, nothing is achieved, nobody was doing anything in terms of other alternative dispute resolution mechanism to be used. So if dialogue should fail between two parties and nobody is willing to shift ground, then do we fold our arms? So for me, even if it means, though it's a painful thing to say or to even contemplate, even if it will take 1 year to go through the court process and sort the issues the way it's supposed to be sought and follow due process. Look, democracy is about due process. It's about rule of law. It's about constitutionalism. So we should, as a nation, do things that will endure and will stand the test of time, rather than live. We solve this problem.
All right. So some of the fears that have been expressed by people who have watched this closely and people who are stakeholders in this sector is the fact that if you use the court to, say, compel lecturers to go back to the classrooms, what would be the implication of that on the educational sector, on the learning of students in our institutions today? Because we've seen some who have, in one way or another, expressed the idea that, well, you're not going to have that quality education, or you're not going to have lecturers who are actually will be going back to the classrooms with the zeal or the morale or the passion to actually teach children in a way that they can actually learn.
You see, let me underscore one thing. For choosing the profession to teach in itself is a sacrifice. The teaching profession is not a money-making profession. It is a profession that one chooses based on passion. And if you have the passion to teach, to give back to society what society has given you.
But
you ought to have this at the back of your mind when you are choosing
but for
your
passion
profession.
to be
That is one.
sustained.
The second thing is, like when you use the word compulsion, nobody can compel anybody to do anything, especially as it is now. But the other thing again is, the ASUU members are teachers, and teachers are people that are teaching people to be disciplined, to obey rules, to obey regulations.
Doctor,
now you cannot.
Doctor, you know, we've always we've normalized the saying that we've always said, well, the reward of the teacher is in heaven. That's a common saying here in our clime, and we've always said that, well, lecturing is a sacrifice, a passion, yes. But to sustain that passion, don't you think that remuneration plays a great role in sustaining the passion of a person in whatever endeavor he chooses to engage in?
Yeah, that is quite correct. But in doing that again, we shouldn't place money at the heart of everything. Now, let me say this. No profession gives you the latitude to work for government and work for yourself like the teaching profession. They are like the medical doctors. They are one of the professions that are given the latitude to engage in community service, to engage in consultancies, to engage as even visiting lecturers or visiting professors that will earn you extra income. Now, if you have income coming from government and you have latitude to do other things to earn income, that equally gives you room to increase the amount that goes into your purse. But what we are saying is, you can't pay for education. Let us not deceive ourselves. The quantum of energy that is required to teach, if you want to price it in Naira terms, in dollar terms, I bet you most people cannot afford university education. They can't afford it. So if we now say that we must have it our own way, this is the point I'm trying to make, that we must have it our own way at the expense of the younger ones. Look, don't forget the fact that some teachers that taught us could not afford bicycle. They could not afford even motorcycle. But they did all of this with passion, believing that the younger generation will remember them.
All right, Doctor.
What I'm saying is to give people education, to enlighten them. If you want to do that based on money or the way they are paying politicians or local government chairmen, I bet you a lot of people will not go into the teaching profession.
All right, Doctor, you talked about people who trained your generation not having bicycles. Some persons will say times have changed. And you do agree with me that because of welfare, some people have left the teaching profession in Nigeria and have gone to other climes.
Yes.
So away from that now, I would like you to speak to the current development where the federal government yesterday ordered vice chancellors to direct the lecturers to reopen the schools. This is coming after the industrial court ruling, which had been appealed by ASUU, and this directive was issued in the morning. And in the evening, there was another directive withdrawing that earlier directives. And the spokesperson said that, of the NUC, said it was withdrawn because the person who signed it, the Director of Finance and Accounts, was in acting capacity, and that the minister spoke with the head of the AUC and that they had decided to withdraw that letter. Doesn't that look like there's confusion somewhere?
Of course. It all depends on what the government is thinking. For instance, if maybe after issuing that very particular directive, government felt that it shouldn't come as if it is compelling ASUU to go back to the classroom and decided to withdraw it. Fine and good. All we want is a solution to this problem. And the solution will come from both parties. It must come from government and it must come from ASUU. Because as it is now, it is the students that are suffering. The government will tell you it is protecting the nation because it has other obligations as well as parent and student. And ASUU will tell you they're protecting student and parent. Yet, a course that's supposed to last for, say, 4 years will last for 5 years. A course for 5 years will last for, and this is not even the end of strike in Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned. Because even if ASUU is giving
it appears
1 trillion, 2.1 strike. This is the fact. It's somewhere. Well, that is left for government to resolve. But the issue there is, whatever we are doing, as a government, as a people, as a lecturer, we should be able to place public interest above private interest. And as you said, times have
Doctor,
changed.
You know,
but we have got a nation to protect first before we could pursue our interest.
Okay, so Doctor,
and I continue to maintain this situation, this very particular point. Let me land, please. A government is like a father, and you've got one source of income, and you have multiple issues to contend with. Now, we're talking about post-COVID, we're talking about banditry, we're talking about insurgency, and this is why we need to put on our thinking caps to design solutions that will work.
All right. Doctor, you know, I'm not sure about how your colleagues will be listening to you and, I mean, their reactions to what you are saying right now, but let me put it this way, that in terms of the long-term implication that this is going to have, and based on the explanations that ASUU has given, they said that they are doing this in the nation's interest, in the country's interest, in the interest of Nigerians, in the interest of students. So it's not really about them, it's not about their personal well-being, but much more than that, it's about the way the schools are, the infrastructure in schools and all of that. Aren't you concerned about, you know, the likelihood of public institutions or public tertiary institutions, so to say, becoming more like the experience that we are now having with the primary and secondary school educational system, whereby private sector, or I would say private universities are the private schools are the ones running the educational system?
Well, I will continue to maintain that the quality of the kind of education you get to some large extent is dependent on the quality of the teachers you have. But without commitment, you may not have the kind of student you want to get. That is one. Secondly, I continue to mention this. In a poll conducted by NOI-POS, and that very particular poll was really timely. And parents and students were asked, prospective students were asked, why is it that most of you prefer to go outside this country to study? And the number one reason they gave was incessant strike in our university. First, the first thing they mentioned is academic calendar. That if you go to a Uganda university, if it is 4 years, it is 4 years you are going to graduate. And you start Nigeria University, you don't know when you are going to graduate.
What about the quality?
And my point is, we must not use methods that
all right. Well,
I didn't get that.
Yes, I'm talking
as
about
number one.
Access to the quality education is key. Can ordinary Nigerians actually pay, you know, for quality education, going by the way things are going now? All right, it looks like we've lost Doctor there.